Welcome to the Mick, a Mook, and a Mike.
Hosted by four-time Emmy-nominated producer
Frank Pace and retired New York City firefighter, 9/11 first responder, and Vietnam vet, Billy O'Connor.
Today's guest, Joe West, is back. He dishes on managers, players, and the art of rubbing baseballs.
My brother
Frank. How you doing, pal? How's everything?
I'm doing really good.
Yeah?
I'm doing really good.
Grandkids are walking now, and
They are.
that's like mom says, oh, move everything up. The electrical things will move them up.
Oh, they've been... let me tell you a little bit about my family. When Frankie was born, to my first granddaughter, Karen says, we got to protect the house. I said, okay, so how much is protect the house going to cost? She goes, well, I think I know a guy. So we called the guy. $1,500 later, our house now is childproof.
What does that mean? Raising the outlets and everything? Or what is
no, they have. He comes over and he puts plugs. And he puts stuff in the plugs. He latches the drawers so nobody else can.
$1,500 right there.
Well, we have a portal in the stairwell. He put a plexiglass over the portal so the kid couldn't
fall down the stairs.
Fall through the portal. So another $1,500 worth. Another $1,500 well spent. What could you do with $1,500, Billy?
I bet it on a football game. Make it $3,000. Why settle for $1,500? You got a sure thing.
So we're just talking amongst ourselves. In about a couple of minutes, we'll bring on Joe West, and he'll join us. So how's your life? How's life on the sailboat?
Life on a sailboat. That's interesting. I mean,
why don't you tell the people what you're doing? You've now moved from the mountain.
Well, the reason I moved from the mountains is my wife had a neurological issue. She had a bone.
Yeah, she married you.
Well, that's that's a big neurological issue. Obviously, she has eyesight problems as well. We had to move from the mountains because she had a disc removed from the front of her neck, and then they had to go around the back of her neck and take it again, and they had to cut all the traps and muscles and everything else. And of course, I went to New York and came back and gave her COVID, which made things always that much better. That attacked her neurological, because it attacks your weaknesses, apparently. Anyway, to make a long story short, I'm not a doctor, Frank. You know the medical terms I throw around,
Yeah.
The twitches, And anyway, she goes up. We live at 7,000 feet, and every time she goes up, she's in pain. She twists like a pretzel. All the discs get compressed. It affects her neurological. She wakes up with pain in her hands. It's terrible. So turns out, every time we went down by the water, by the ocean, she was fine. So she says, "Take me to the beach. Take me to the beach." And I kept driving down an hour and a half to get to Ventura, go to the beach. So finally, I said, "Well, it doesn't matter if you got a 20-bedroom house," which I don't. I don't have a mansion by any stretch. You imagine a cabin in the woods. But how can you be happy if you're not healthy? So I ended up, I can't afford a house in California by the water, obviously, So I bought a 30-foot sailboat, and we're living on a 30-foot sailboat. But I got to tell you, she's like a 19-year-old kid. She's paddleboarding for an hour. She's up raising the sails. She's doing work on the boat, and she's really handy with electronics and all that stuff. And I'm useless. I can't do it. Which is hard to believe. I'm a fireman, but I'm the moron. If they say go get a left-handed monkey wrench, I go looking for a left-handed monkey wrench. I don't.
So you're living on a boat full time?
Yes, and I'm going to rent my house upstate because, like I said, there's no sense in going back up there if she's not healthy. A pain is, who wants to live in pain?
Yeah, I know. Let me ask you a question.
Why do I think this question is going to be painful?
How do you take a shower?
I got to go up to they have the public showers, and it's inside and they have laundry room, and they have.
You take a shower in the laundry room?
Yeah. You put your 4 quarters in, you throw yourself in the machine, Frank. Add a little bleach. Look, smell. You can eat off of me. That's how clean I am. You want a sandwich?
Oh, Christ.
Yeah, but so in the morning, it's a bit awkward, but you have your coffee, you have the nature's little bulldozer, you know what I mean? A couple of cups of coffee, you go, I have to get up to the poopatarium, and up we go. Because, you could defecate on the boat. But I
Oh.
mean, it's
Then
a dirty
you got to live with
boat.
the smell.
Yeah, then you got to
God.
flush it into the tank, and then you got to go out and empty the tank, and
Oh,
But I mean, just picture the cruise ships, right? Imagine how many bowls and dumping it to the ocean.
yeah. There are a lot of things I admire about you.
That ain't one of them.
But that ain't one of them. With that, I think to try not to pass away on us.
Oh, Jesus
with that,
Christ.
I think we'll bring on Joe West.
I'll tell you what. I gotta listen to these all the time. Here's a guy comes down from the mountain like Moses to live on a boat.
Living
And
like Moses, all right.
Yeah. and the other guy, he childproofs his house. The other day I saw this kid on TV on the news. He's walking around the lobby outside his apartment. He's got a handgun. And thank God they didn't put a bullet in the chamber, or that kid could have shot somebody, or he might have shot himself. But to childproof a house, that's amazing. And $1,500, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money in California, even to childproof a house. But
Yeah,
I'm proud of you. That's really good.
I'm proud of you.
you're proud of me for spending $1,500, or for Billy for living on the boat?
He's looking at you like you're a giant lollipop. I'm proud of you.
The greatest thing is your kids that made you pay for the childproofing.
Joe, I got one kid and lots of money, and she getting a lot of it right now.
Well,
Because
did you hear Billy talking about going to get a left-handed wrench and all that stuff?
yeah,
I remember one kid came to our clubhouse one time. He was one of the bat boys, new bat boy for the Cardinals, and he wanted the key to the bullpen. And the players had set him up, said, "You need to go get the key to the bullpen." Of course, he went to the bullpen coach. He says, "No, I don't have it. Go check with the umpires." And it's something you did to the new rookie on the bat boy squad or whatever. And this kid looked all over the stadium. They sent him to the general manager's office. I mean, he went all over the stadium looking for the key to the bullpen. I mean, I felt so bad for the kid. And finally, he brought the baseballs out before the game, and we told him, "Did they tell you?" "Did they tell me what?" "I'm still looking for that damn key."
hey, speaking of baseballs, is there an art to rubbing up a baseball? How do you rub up a baseball? Where do you get the mud from?
Well, the mud is from a creek up in New Jersey, and
On the level?
Yeah, this is the real line level.
yeah, and it's got a little silt to it, and what it does is it takes the gloss off the outer cover of the baseball, and it will just discolor the ball enough to take the shine off it when you throw it, so in the lights it doesn't have a glare to it and all this stuff. And what it does is it helps the pitcher grip the ball, and it helps the hitter see it without a glare to it. So, but it's Lena Blackburn's mud, and it's harvested out of a little place in New Jersey, and they've been doing it for 100 years. And they rub up the baseball. You just take a little bit of it in your hands, and you rub the ball between your hands. And I remember we had an 8-year-old kid in Dodger Stadium one time. His name was Brad Hungerford. And I said, "Brad, come on, you're going to help us rub up the baseballs." And the first two he rubbed up were so dark, you couldn't see them. They were so we started the game. I said, "I'm going to start the game with your baseballs, right?" So the first pitch came in from the Dodger pitcher, and the kid from the Braves stepped down and said, "That ball's a little dark." And I said, "Let me see it." And I threw it back. "That's fine." But I rubbed up 30 baseballs while he rubbed up 2. So you can imagine how dark the 2 he rubbed up were. But,
What a tremendous marketing thing, though, for these people in Jersey to
That's
have
exactly what I was
Yeah,
thinking.
I mean, to be able to have the special mud. But I got to tell you, my encounter with special mud, when I had the bar right out in Queens, it was a big joint. I was trying to fill it up during the week. So somebody told me mud wrestling's a big deal, right? So now in my head, I'm saying to myself, okay, mud wrestling. So let me hire a couple of strippers. Number one, get them in the mud, have them, like tangle up with like, cat fight, right? In the mud. So I do, and I find out I had 4 strippers to have mud fight, this way, because they didn't care if their tops came off or whatever in bathing suits and everything. And then I found out that I had to get special mud. I had to get the mud from Belmont Racetrack. Honest to God, yeah, because honest to God, to make this mud, you could add the water, but it had to be no gravel, it had to be pure mud. And the mud was costing me more than the strippers.
Holy crap!
Honest to God,
Is that true?
Yeah, true. Of course.
Well, of course it's true.
I couldn't make that
Yes.
up. I'm not that good a writer. I'm not that good a writer.
So Belmont dirt costs you money twice.
But
They cost you money when the horses ran on it, and then it cost you money when your strippers
Ran on it.
ran on it.
You know that movie A Bronx Tale where they got Joe Mush? Like Joe Mush is the guy, they tear up the tickets at Belmont as soon as they find out he bet on it because everything touches turns to shit, Joe Mush.
Yeah.
When they made that movie, that was the real Joe Bush. Honest to God. Like my friend Vinny called me up, hey, Joe Bush is in a movie, right? And what happened was he was having problems with De Niro because every time at 1 o'clock he wanted to leave the set to get to Belmont to catch the first race. True story.
Wow.
Years ago, we had a couple of sports writers from the Dodgers, like Terry Johnson, who's since passed away, and a guy named Gordon Verrell, who wrote for the Long Beach Independent Press. And we took him to one of those bars, and I talked the owner of the bar into video him wrestling the mud wrestlers, the strippers that you're talking about. And I said, I need this video. And he said, well, what are you going to do with it? I said, well, they're sports writers for the Dodgers, and I'm going to give it to the Dodgers PR guy. And in about the 5th inning, they're going to put it in the screen in the press box so everybody can see it.
That was probably Steve Brenner at the time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Dodgers PR guy.
Yeah. And of course the game's going along and nothing's happening, and all of a sudden I hear a rumble from the sideline, and somebody says they're calling for you in the press box. Of course, I'm at second base, and I look up and there's Gordon and Terry, and they're waving at me because they had shown the video of them wrestling these strippers in the press box at Dodger Stadium. So,
Well, Billy, what are some of the other things that you've encountered in the bar business aside from your foray with strippers and mud wrestling? What are some of the other?
You do anything to promote it. It's like who was the guy who was the big promotion guy in San Diego, right? Was it San Diego? There was the guy with the big promotion. I don't know. But you try anything to bring people in. Of course, weekends you're always packed. During the week is the key. You got to figure out something to get another night going. The same thing in the restaurant business. Friday and Saturday pay your rent, but if you're not busy Wednesday, Thursday, you don't make any money.
where's the place in LA has the turtle races?
Oh, it's Marina Del Rey, a place that right down in Marina. Every Thursday night or every Tuesday night they have turtle races,
and you can bet on them.
Yeah, you can bet on them. You can bet.
And then there was a bar called the Prince of Wales that their worst day was Wednesday, so they decided they're going to have a drawing on Wednesday, and if you were at the bar on Wednesday, then you won the pool of money, and everybody had to put in like $10 to get in the pool, and your name stayed on the books, right? Every time you'd come, you'd put your name in. So the first Wednesday, somebody won like $40 because there weren't many people there. So the second Wednesday, all this had spread around. So now they have like $1,000 in this thing for the next Wednesday drawing, and that person wasn't there when they drew it. And they could draw any time of the day to decide who won the thing. So the manager at the bar got us to put in money, right? And he told all the patrons, said, now, if the umpires are on TV at the time we make the drawing, they can win. And there was a big to-do about that. They said, no, that's not fair. They have to be.
Well, they got a place. I'm sorry, Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, but that was the Prince of Wales, and it was.
And what city was that in?
Playa del Rey.
Oh, Prince of Wales in L.A.
There's a joint in Manhattan, down in the Village, where they used to hire nothing but the retired opera singers, from the Met, and they served Italian food and sing opera as they were serving. That was a big deal. There's a place in St. Martin I thought was the greatest gimmick I ever saw. It's a tiki bar on the beach, but St. Martin's got a very small airport, And these every 4 hours, a 747 flies in from France, and it flies right over this tiki bar.
Like the old Shea Stadium.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
But this is like, I mean, you look up, you feel like you're underneath the wings of a 747. You've never been that close to a 747. I said, what a great gimmick. Every 4 hours, everybody gathers because the plane's coming in, you know?
How are the planes coming into Shea Stadium? Did they rumble pretty loud, Joe?
Oh yeah, yeah. They flew right by the stadium to land at LaGuardia. So, and it was, of course, they did the same. The planes flew into Doral right by Miami's airport too, and it'd take the golfers about 2 days to adjust to it. The tournament, these big planes go buzzing by you while you're in the middle of your backswing.
Well,
But,
yeah, out at Shea, I mean, that's we have in Lamar's Gamble. The reason they named the Jets is because it was by the airport and it rhymed with Mets. So they call the Jets, and it was because of the airport. I mean, just a little trivia there for anybody who gives a shit.
Well, that's a good piece of giving a shit trivia. Hey,
Yeah,
Joe,
but,
did you?
that ballpark had a lot of history to it. I mean, didn't the Beatles play there too?
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
Yep.
I think the Beatles played there. They had concerts there. They had, and one of O'Malley's big deals when he moved the Dodgers to L.A. was to rent the stadium out for things other than just baseball.
Boy, was he
he was way ahead of its time.
Oh,
he was
he was far and away ahead of everybody else.
Without a doubt.
Yeah,
He was going to build a dome stadium in Brooklyn, and the city council wouldn't let him.
Yep.
We said, okay, I'll just move.
A place with a lot of land, and he got a sweetheart deal on land in LA. And then you mentioned something about oil rights, right? Where
Yeah, they struck oil on the southeast corner of that property, and Union 76 harvested the oil for him. And they actually had a gas station in the center. They told him, if you'll give us the only ad in the stadium, as long as you own the club, we'll build the ballpark for you.
Amazing.
And so they did. They opened in 1962, and they opened. The box seats were $8, highest ticket price in baseball.
Well,
and he was the first. He was the first guy that said, if I sell out, I'll televise the games.
wow.
He did that, and
he-
sure enough, he did. The first game they didn't sell out, so he didn't televise. The second game, all the sponsors called and said, "How many tickets do we need to buy?"
Wow, smart.
And he was the first owner to draw 3 million people in baseball, and he was the first owner to draw 4 million. And he did it because he marketed it well, and he didn't overcharge you. He believed that if he could get you in the ballpark, he could get your money. So he was one of the smarter, and his ball players were really underpaid for the time. They weren't getting the top dollar because he felt like he could get them commercials and ads to do while they were out there. Drysdale and those guys made a fortune doing ad work out there. And even Leo DeRocha appeared on the Beverly Hillbillies. So,
and Mr. Ed.
yeah, that's right.
DeRocha was on that too.
Yeah.
Lorraine Day was his wife.
Lorraine Day was his wife. Rickles bought DeRocha and Lorraine Day's house.
Is that right?
And that was the house that Don and Barbara lived in until they moved, probably in about the year 2000.
I got to segue for a second because when Joe was talking about how O'Malley, realized that you get people in the stadium because you're still paying the bills for the light, the rent, and everything else. They got to get people in there. They're going to spend money. It's the same thing in the restaurant business. Same thing. So I had a deal. I couldn't get nobody in my joint. I had a high-end restaurant. Fridays and Saturday nights we were packed, but I lived in a rural town and nobody wanted to come out on Wednesday.
Wait, is that where Roger Bear went?
Yeah, Roger Bear used to come in there. Exactly. Roger Bear used to come in there. A lot of guys that were golfing up in Mayapack was the name of the town. But anyway, I couldn't figure out how to get people in, right? So I put up this big sign. It was right on Route 6, which is a major thoroughfare in this rural area. Prime rib, 16-ounce prime rib, $9.95, right? All right. Big sign. People are going by on Wednesday nights. I figure I get people in. I'm paying the lights. I'm paying for the help. I'm paying the chefs everywhere. I got to get people in. They'll buy drinks, whatever. So now I'm busy on a Saturday night. I got 3 bartenders behind because now I'm paying the rent, right? So I jump behind the bar with the 3 bartenders. I'm pumping booze, and I get a phone call. Hello. I saw your sign, 16-ounce prime rib. for $9.95. I wasn't. Yeah, that's right, Lenny. What do you have? A screwdriver? Yeah, scotch and soda. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. What's the problem? Does that come with French fries? I said, no, lady, look. Hang on a second. Gin and tonic. Yeah, okay. No, it's a la carte, lady. A la carte. What does it come with a salad bar? I said, no, look, lady. It's. Yeah, you got it. 2 pairs. Yeah. It's a la carte. Oh. What does it come? I said, listen, you fucking cheap bastard. It comes with a fork and a knife and a plate. And stay the hell home. And the waitress says to me, you can't talk to the customers like this. I can talk to them any way I want. I own a joint. But people are, you got to get people in is the point.
That's how you do it.
It's an abstract story.
By the way, Joe, are you familiar with who Roger Bear is?
No.
Roger Bear.
No, who's Roger Bear?
Roger Bear is the way Billy says Rod Gilbert.
Yeah, Roger Bear used to come into my joint.
On our first episode, he said Roger Bear used to come into our joint, and I said, "Who's Roger Bear?" And he goes, "Roger Bear, the
Rangers,
famous." And I said, "Oh, you mean Rod Gilbert?" He said, "Yeah, he's French, Roger Bear."
Roger Bear.
Did you get to know any hockey players? Cross-pollination of sports. Football players. Was there a kinship between umpires and referees, or referees of other sports? Did you get to know them at all?
I met Andy Van Helman the first year he officiated in the NHL because it was my first year in the major leagues. And Andy had a great career in hockey, and he later became a supervisor of officials. And I knew a lot of the NBA refs. In fact, Jerry Crawford's, who was a National League umpire's brother, Joey Crawford, was a longtime NBA official. So we knew him, and it's really funny. We were at a golf tournament in Mohegan Sun, and Joey Crawford had got suspended for something he did to Robinson, the kid that played for the Dallas team. And Charles Barkley came up. He says, "Have you got Joey Crawford's phone number? I want to call him and say, it's all right. Everything will blow over. And don't worry about it. You're a good official and all this stuff." And so I gave him Joey's phone number. And of course, he called and consoled Joey because he got suspended. And of course, Joey still stood by what he said to Robinson. But anyway, yeah, when the season's over and everything calms down, everybody kind of calms down. It's amazing that people don't realize that in the sports world you're really part of a family because you're in the entertainment business, and part of what you do is to entertain the people. Whether you like the umpires or not, they're part of the game. Whether you like this player or that player, they're part of the game. They're part of the fabric of the game. So yeah, I knew a lot of officials. I knew a few hockey players. I knew Dennis Savard and Jimmy Pappin, and I met a bunch of hockey players. Rod Seeley, who played with the Rangers, he's down here. He plays right up the road from me in Leesburg, and so yeah, we met a lot of people, a lot of different sports. And Sudden Sam McDowell lives down here in the Villages, and he was an amazing pitcher for a lot of years. And he had an alcohol problem and probably drank himself out of baseball. But after his retirement, he went back to school and he became a counselor, and he actually helped run the BAT program for baseball, which is the baseball assistance team. And he's been an asset to baseball for a long time, just helping them get people who have financial and drug problems. And of course, BAT takes care of a lot of people that are down on their luck after their spouses have passed away. So he's been an asset to the game even after he got out of it. So
yeah, the baseball assistance team, that's what BAT stands for, was started by Joe Garagiola, wasn't it? Senior. I think he was. I
think old Joe was one of the original guys that started. Yeah.
Yeah.
And and it's helped a lot of people, and it's anybody that's in baseball. Could be a minor league player or so on, that, or a scout or a trainer or somebody that's looking for assistance. It's been a great program.
You worked with my friend Satch Davidson, didn't you?
I did. I worked with Satch.
Yeah, Satch is a hell of a guy, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
May he rest in peace. He was behind the plate when Game 6, when Fisk hit the home run.
Oh.
When Fisk was pointing, go foul, go fair, go fair. Yeah, Satch was behind the plate, and I think he was behind the plate when Aaron hit
the
715.
The breaking Ruth's record, in Atlanta. That's right.
Off Al Downing. Well, because I remember Satch, who was a golfer we met at Johnny Bench's and Doug Flynn's tournament in Lexington, but he was a Big Ten referee, official in the offseason.
Yeah.
He
had one of the funniest plays he ever had. Willie Stargell was running on a pitch. It was a hit and run deal, and of course the hitter didn't hit it, and they threw Willie out by about 10 feet. And Willie popped up, slid about 8 feet short of the bag, and looked at Satch and tried to call timeout. And Satch just laughed at him.
By the way, Billy, can you guess how Satch got his nickname?
No, I probably can't, unless he was carrying around a satchel full of cash. I don't know.
Well, no, he looked exactly like Horace Debussy Jones, a.k.a. Satch from the Bowery Boys.
Is that right? Really?
Yep.
That's how he got.
That's exactly
right. He looked like Satch.
He looked like Satch. So
the Bowery Boys.
That's how he got his nickname.
Did that guy eventually kill himself? That guy who played Satch?
No.
Who was the guy who killed himself?
Oh,
one that blew his brains out.
You got any more?
The ultimate act of self-criticism.
I think.
I don't like myself.
I think it was Leo Gorcey. I
don't think Leo Gorcey was the one. You sure?
Oh, I know it wasn't. I know it wasn't Hunts Hall. Hunts Hall was a great guy. He came and did. What did he do for us? Oh, he did a Daddy Dearest.
Oh, okay.
With us.
Okay, cool. So it wasn't Satch then.
He was a good guy. He was a really good guy. It wasn't Satch. No, it wasn't. Nor was it Satch Davidson. He didn't know. And if he blew a call, he didn't admit it because he was told never admit you blew a call.
That's right.
What was the name of the school teacher that Chubby was always in love with? Mrs. something.
What?
Come on, I had a great Mrs.
No,
Strawberry.
I think you're thinking of Little Rascals.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Miss Crabtree.
Mrs. Crabtree.
Miss Crabtree.
I am thinking of Little Rascals. Yeah. Okay.
We go all over the place with this show, Joe. So,
I'm not worried. I mean, just looking at you guys, I thought you played the Little Rascals.
Well.
Oh, go ahead. You can't help yourself.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, don't go down that road.
No, I won't go down that road. But we got one of them. Oh shucks! What did you watch when you were a kid? What shows did you watch when you were a kid, Joe?
Oh gosh. Well, when Angie Dickinson came out with Policewoman, I watched her because I thought she was the hottest thing on the planet.
Uh-huh.
And I can remember watching MASH, and I was enthralled at the song that they played to lead into it. It was called
Suicide is Painless.
Suicide is Painless. And I'm thinking, what a great name for a song to run this show on. And then, of course, everybody watched Bonanza. And I didn't know until just this past year that if you looked at every show in Bonanza, the wardrobe didn't change. They wore the same thing for every show. And there was a piece written about it, why they did that, in case they would use something from a previous show that they just splice in. So every show they did in Bonanza was, the wardrobe was exactly the same. And then...
well, you always wore the same wardrobe in Major League Baseball as an umpire.
Well, until we started wearing that FTX stuff on our jerseys. Where we looked like stock car racers.
When I was a kid, I was 6 or 7 years old watching TV, and they had all these programs like Father Knows Best and Leave It to Beaver and all that shit, And I always used to be amazed because the father would come home and the kids would go, "Daddy's home," and they go running out and they all hug the father and everything. I'm saying, what planet are these kids living on? My old man was like, he'd come back from work and he'd stop at the neighborhood saloon and he'd have about 6 or 7 belts, right, as quick as possible. He'd have 6 or 7 shooters and 7 beers before he came home for his dinner and, go up to work the next day or whatever. But I had it down. I'd be playing stickball in the street, and we had it down to think if my old man rounded the corner coming back from the saloon and he saw me, the first thing was, "Hey, your pants are outside your shirt. Your hair is too long. Your face is done. Get upstairs. Get the hell up the street." And it would break up the stickball game. So when my old man came around the corner, the guy in the outfield would scream to the guy at third base, "Billy's old man." And then the guy would say to the catcher, "Billy's old man." Then I'd run into the hallway and hide so the old man could go upstairs and we wouldn't have to break up the game. But the cognitive dissonance to me looking at these kids like, Daddy's home. Like, I didn't want to see my old man come around the corner. It was a pain in the ass.
Yeah, because if he had a few belts, he would probably give you a few belts.
Without a doubt.
of
And
your own.
that's the way they operated.
See, that's why the Andy Griffith Show is so important as a cultural thing for everybody to look at. You ever notice that nobody in the Andy Griffith Show was married?
Yeah, I never thought about that.
Well, Otis the drunk was.
Yeah, and every night he'd get drunk and go put himself in jail because he didn't want to go home.
Wow.
I don't know how many umpires that said, "Oh my God, my wife's going to kill me when I get home." I said, "Well, then don't go home. You can't." But nobody on Andy Griffith or Andy of Mayberry or Mayberry RFD, nobody was married. So that's why it was such a successful show. They said that kid Ronnie Howard never missed his line. They said he was one of the best they had.
Yeah, and
as a kid,
and even as my friend Howard Morris played Ernest T. Bass in Andy Griffith, and he said that even at 6 years, and he directed a bunch of them. He directed more of them than he acted in them, actually. And he said Ron Howard, even at 6 or 7 years old, said, "Why do you put the camera there, Howie? How do you set up the lens?"
Oh.
He was talking about all of those things then.
And whatever happened to that poor kid, Ronnie Howard?
He lost his hair. He lost.
he lost
the only thing he ever lost.
He lost his hair. But you were going to ask a question, Derek?
I'm just curious about why Joe. Why do you? First of all, why do you know that fun fact about the Andy Griffith Show? And
well, my brother's seen every one of the Andy Griffith shows, and that was one of his favorite lines. It's such a successful show. It's such a good show because nobody's married. And my brother's been married 3 times. His second wife was his high school English teacher. And even though we grew up in North Carolina, she was still a little bit older than he was. And I'll never forget that.
She was 15 and he was 11.
Yeah. When he was a kid, he had to wear glasses. He had to wear glasses, and he hated it because I didn't have to wear them. Well, a lot of ball players thought I should wear them, but he had to wear glasses, and he couldn't wear contact lenses because they irritated his eyes. So he married his high school English teacher, and I'll never forget, we're sitting around the living room one day, and he looked at me and my dad, and he says, he said, they have this new eye operation that'll cure nearsightedness for life. It's done with laser surgery. I says, "That's great. How much does it cost?" He says, "About $10,000. It's $5,000 an eye." And he no sooner said that than his wife, who was older than he was, and always upset when they look at them together and know that he was younger than she was. She said, "You mean you'd spend $10,000 on your eyes and you wouldn't give me $2,500 for a facelift?" And he said, "Well, I might have to get my eyes fixed."
Good Joe.
Joe, now, is that a true story or is that part of your repartee, your MC repartee?
That's the absolute truth, and they're not married anymore.
That's like the guy who gets 6 bottles of scotch and his wife's complaining about him spending all the money on scotch. And she won't let him spend any money on makeup. She goes, "The makeup makes me look better." He says, "Oh, does the scotch."
Oh, jeez.
Wow.
You know what? You talk about Andy Griffith. It's one of my favorite movies is A Face in the Crowd. Have you ever seen that about Lonesome Roads?
No.
No,
No, no, I
Huey
haven't.
Long. I think it's about Huey Long, the Kingfish. It's a great movie. A Face in the Crowd. Andy Griffith's terrific in it.
Oh,
Terrific.
is that the Huey? Huey?
I believe it's Huey Long. Yeah, the
I'm
Kingfish.
keep saying Huey Lewis, not Huey Lewis.
Have you ever seen that movie, Joe? A Face in the Crowd with Andy Griffith.
No, I don't believe I saw that.
Terrific. He's terrific.
Did you see the Huey Lewis movie?
Huey Lewis in the news. And this is the news.
Oh, shucks.
Oh,
What else you want to talk about?
Who, me?
Yeah, you. What do you want to talk about, Joe?
What does Joe want to talk about?
Give us a
Well,
good, give us a
Give
good
us another
subject.
story, Joe.
I got a good story about Huey Lewis. The band Chicago, Jason Sheff, who played bass for them, called me during he said, "Are you going to be home during the All-Star break?" And I was living in Fort Lauderdale at the time. And I said, "Yeah, I'm going to be there." He says, "Well, Tuesday, can you set us up for golf and you be the fourth?" Well, Jason and I had played together that celebrity golf tour. And we'd played in Jamaica, we played in Mohegan Sun, and so we knew each other pretty well. In fact, Jason's dad played bass for Elvis, and it was the funny thing when I studied the band Chicago, I realized that everybody in the band had a doctorate in music except Jason, and Jason was as talented as anybody in the band. That everything, he could play piano, he could play guitar. Anyway, so he called me, wants to set up this deal to play golf. So when they get there, the second guy with him is Huey Lewis. And the third guy with him is Bill Gibson, Huey's drummer. And so they're going to play me and Jason a $20 Nassau. Well, Jason at the time was about a 15 handicap, and I'm thinking, I hope I brought enough money. So we tee off on the first hole, and I make a par, and we win the first hole. The second hole's a par 5, and Jason hits driver 4-iron into a par 5 and makes eagle. Now here's a 14 or 15 handicap that eagles the second hole. And for all intents and purposes, this match is over. I mean, Bill Gibson's like a 5 handicap, and Huey's a decent player, but he's not as good as he thinks he is. So anyway, we play a couple more holes as a par 3, and Huey hits the ball about 2 feet from the hole, and I sink a 15-footer for birdie, and he's shaking over the putt. He can barely make it. We beat them 6 ways on the front. So we play the back 9, we start the back 9, and Huey'd hit a good drive, and then he turned the turf over and it hit about 15 feet. And I rode by him and said, "Nice drive, Huey." And Jason starts laughing. He starts hitting me in the ribs saying, "Don't let them up. They're used to people kissing their ass. Don't let them up. You got them going now." So, and we are killing him. So 2 holes later, Huey's about to blow a gasket. And I said, "You know, Huey, when I worked the World Series in Cleveland, we had the party at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame." And that we did. The party for the World Series was at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And so I said that, and as soon as I said it, Jason said, "Can you believe he's been touring 25 years and he's not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?" and Huey turns around and says, "They've been touring 35 years and they're not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame." And the drummer, Bill Gibson, said, "Well, I have a set of my sticks in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame." And I just couldn't let that pass. I said, "Really, did Buddy Rich play with your sticks one night?" And if you think ball players curse out an umpire, you should have heard this drummer cursing me out for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And they both couldn't wait and go back and tell both bands that I asked him if Buddy Rich played with the sticks.
That's a great story. You know, there's some great ball busting that goes on golf courses.
Oh,
You know, Tiger Woods would hit his drive like 300 yards past everybody else when he was playing these pro-ams, or 300 feet or something, not 300 yards past him, but he's so substantial. And he would say, he would walk down the fairway and he said, "They're planning on building a Kmart here." And they said, "Oh, where?" He said, "On the amount of land property between your ball and mine."
A super K mark. Yeah.
Super K. And Artist Gilmore, he could hit the ball pretty far, and he would, if he would outdrive you, he'd walk up and he would say, "Does your husband play?" Yeah, there's some great ball busting.
Great lines.
Goes
great
on.
lines.
What's the greatest ball busting line you've ever heard, Billy?
The greatest ball busting line?
Have you ever heard and you ever gave?
Oh, Jesus, I don't know. The greatest ball busting line. It's put me on the spot. The greatest ball busting line I ever heard. I know. Well, I always think of a real quick line. I remember it was an old Al Jolson line, I think. It was like he was dancing with a girl, and the girl says to him, "You know what just crossed my mind?" And he looked down and said, "Whatever it was, it had a short trip." But I like one-liners. I like fast one-liners. Good job.
Years ago, I was working second base at Yankee Stadium, and Carlos Beltran made the last out at second base. And Jeter and Robbie Cano brought him his glove. And Carlos looked at me and said, "Hey, Grandpa," just like that. And of course, Cano and Jeter looked at him like, "Have you lost your mind? You calling him Grandpa?" And I said, "I might be your grandpa. I was in Puerto Rico in 1977.
That's a good. That leveled him. That's a good line.
That got him good.
So I wanted to ask the question to you and then pose it to the rest of the group. Well, the movie industry, what do you think the impact on the movie industry, what do you think the impact of the movie industry, what do you think it has on society?
Well, thankfully, they've never put Billy in a movie. So, Billy.
Definitely not an X-rated movie, I'll tell you that. They'll never put me in one of them.
Geez,
Is that too deep?
It really is too deep. I think American culture is way too caught up in the movie industry. I think the movie industry has way too much impact on what people think and say and do. And now it's gotten even worse because social media influencers who were not able to be in the movies are drawing millions and millions of people. So, a Kardashian is just as popular or more popular than a George Clooney or a Gary Cooper or
So it's not about stardom anymore. It's more about popularity and self-promotion and.
Yeah, it used to be about diversion. You used to go to divert yourself from your life, and you could go to the movies and see a glamorous person on a big screen. Now you can watch. You can see it anywhere. So I think that the impact of movies are being diminished, and the impact of social media is being greater.
Do you think a lot of that started, Frank, when they started with the realism thing in the late 60s with Panic in Needle Park and Taxi Driver and Midnight Cowboy? All those movies started coming in, and you started to, you didn't get the escapism anymore. You started getting the realism. And
I think some of that may be true. Some of that, but they were pointing out real life. All of those Panic in Needle Park was about real life.
Romeo and Juliet, but they're junkies.
Yeah, Romeo and Juliet, but they're junkies. Now look at Prince Harry and Meghan. Prince. Whatever.
Yeah.
Well, let me give you two contrasting movies here that really tell a story, and I'm sure you've seen them both. One of them was called Hidden Figures, where this staff of accountants helped determine where John Glenn was going to land after his space launch with NASA. And yet, every afternoon, the lady that was in charge of it would leave for like 20 minutes because she wasn't allowed to go into the white people's bathroom.
Yeah, they were all black women. I should preface that by saying they were all black women.
And they were paramount in helping get the first person to orbit the Earth because they could calculate all these things. In fact, if you look at the computers that were in that movie, this is a very good depiction of how big those computers were and how poorly they worked and what they were trying to do. And these ladies 3 of them I know were very successful with the NASA program and helping them put it together.
Yeah.
And I thought it was one of Kevin Costner's best movies ever. And he's not even.
Yeah, he's a supporting actor.
What's the name of the movie? Hidden what?
Hidden Figures.
Black,
Figures.
There's black people in it, Billy. You won't watch it.
You stop.
The three leagues are African Americans.
Hidden Figures.
Yeah, that's why you haven't seen it.
And they were brilliant. The movie was well done. It showed what they did, and it's supposed to be a true story.
It is a true story.
And then the other movie that Rita and I, every time we see it come on, we watch it, is The Accountant.
Yeah.
Where the guy grew up, I guess he's autistic or something was wrong with him because he was
on the spectrum.
Is this Ben Affleck?
Yeah, Ben Affleck.
And it was brilliantly laid out. The kid grew up and he learned to fight because his dad was in the army, and he made him take lessons and stuff, and he actually got put in jail for money laundering, and he met a guy in jail that taught him this, that, and the other. And when he broke out of prison because this mafia guy killed his friend who was in prison, and the guy that he killed was his roommate in prison. And now the guy comes out and he starts calling this FBI agent. And he says there's going to be a shipment of this lands in the Miami harbor. And this guy makes all these big busts for the FBI, all because of the tips of the accountant, because the accountant was this accountant for all these different cartels around the world. And it's like he's a Robin Hood that you don't really see or hear. And I just think every time I see it, I see something new that I didn't realize.
Yeah.
Wow. You watch it.
But it's those 2 pictures really, you have to watch them a couple times to get everything. And
that's a good movie.
Yeah,
that's right.
Layers that you missed. Yeah.
Well, I know, Frank, you have a heart out.
No, it's fine.
Good?
Yeah, we're fine.
So I just want to say also, so the reason why I asked that question earlier, we were talking about Andy Griffith, and what was the other show, Joe?
Mayberry.
Mayberry.
Which is a spinoff.
How neither one of those shows had people that were married, and that is
They also didn't have black people.
Yeah, that's true too. But that's most shows, well, at least up
not
until,
anymore.
Up until recently. That's a tenet of the Communist Manifesto, is breaking up the family, and that's why I asked the question about the movie industry and its power on society, because that actually, I'm sure a lot of people picked up the message from those 2 shows, that first of all, it was tough going home to a wife, and also it's tough being married, and the majority of the characters in those movies are married. So what are your thoughts on that?
It's pretty deep to me.
It's pretty deep shit. I think just he wanted to go get a haircut.
You're dealing with 2 mooks and an umpire here. we don't think that deep.
That question reminds me of day drinkers. I'm in a bar. 10 o'clock in the morning. A guy comes in. He has 3 gin and tonics. And he looks up to me and says, "What do you think about the Syria situation, in Syria?" And I'm saying, well, considering it's not even 11 o'clock in the morning, you've already had 3 gin and tonics, and I'm working for minimum wage behind a fucking bar. I don't think we're the 2 guys that solved this problem. Maybe we should leave this up to somebody else,
That's the same guy that came in and said, "What do you think of Beirut?" And he said, "I think he's a hell of a baseball player."
Exactly. Derek to hit us with this question, I think it's out of our league. Just
Yeah, it's a little out of our league.
I don't think Andy of Mayberry or Andy Griffith promoted not being married. I don't think
it didn't even occur to them.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, and I used to, I'll never forget, we used to watch this show called Hee Haw, which was the most corny, stupid.
Mini Pearl, right?
But it was.
I thought that was like a look into society.
Yeah, sitting in a cornfield. But the guy that started Hee Haw was a guy named Sam Lavella.
whose son Torrey is now the manager of the Arizona Diamondbacks.
He's the manager of the Diamondbacks.
And he had a good career. Torrey had a nice career in Major League Baseball as well.
Yeah. And you look at comedy, and I think the funny thing about the comedy shows, like we don't have Sanford and Son, and we don't have the Jeffersons anymore. And I thought the Jeffersons was the best takeoff off the Archie bunker because it fired it back at Archie. I mean, I thought all those were great segments, and I don't know who produced all those, but I thought they were brilliant.
Norman Lear produced all of them.
Yeah, and but I noticed the thing that my father used to say. He said, anybody can be funny if they use profanity. He said it's the guy that's funny that doesn't use profanity that he really liked. He liked guys like Jonathan Winters. My dad liked Bill Cosby because Bill Cosby back then was looked at as the father figure that we're talking about here.
Now we found out that he is.
Yeah, a lot more people.
You know, a lot of stand-up comics, though. I mean, professional stand-up comics to this day, they look at Cosby like he's God. I mean, he could do 2.5 hours without blinking. I mean, go up on stage and do 2.5 hours. I mean, that's how good he was. I mean, notwithstanding all the things that are going on in his life now, but hell of a stand-up comic.
I hear he's going on tour this year. No, I'm serious.
Legit.
Yeah, legit. Cosby on tour.
He always has enough material, and now he probably has more than he really wants. But
yeah, that's for sure.
But that was one thing that my dad would talk to me about. I'll never forget. I very seldom used profanity until I became an umpire.
but then you were forced to, in order to offend yourself. But
to try to keep up. Yeah.
In partially answering Derek's question, I think that the reason that they weren't married is the same reason that they didn't have any blacks, is because they didn't even think about that stuff then. And thank God Martin Luther King came along, and the 60s came along and started making us aware that shows didn't have any black people. And
well, I mean, in those shows, they didn't even show a double bed, right? I mean, they didn't have.
I mean, Dick Van Dyke.
Husband and wife couldn't be in a double bed. It was single beds, right?
It was a crazy. I don't want to say ignorant time, but it was a crazy.
It was homogenized.
It was a crazy ignorant time. And
well, the 50s were an homogenized decade too. I mean, Elvis, they couldn't photograph him from the waist down, and it's the way it was.
How much time do we have? 10 minutes. What do you guys want to talk about? JFK? No, okay.
About the movie or the?
No, let's pass on the subject, because this is a lighthearted show, and I don't want to get into. I don't want to get into that.
I'll give you a clean joke, a lighthearted moment.
Okay.
Very clean. Two Irish guys, right? And they're in Dublin. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. One guy's digging a hole, the other guy's filling in, digging the hole, filling in. They're going on for hours. And there's a banker watching them, and he's saying, "Jesus, these guys are industrious. They never stop. Look, they up and down the street, digging a hole, filling in, digging a hole, filling in." And he comes out of work at 5 o'clock, and he says, he says, "Blads," he says, "I'm watching you two guys. You didn't even stop for lunch." He says, "You're incredibly industrious, digging the hole." But there's one thing I got a question about. What in the name of Jesus are you doing with the digging the hole and filling it back in? "Oh, Patty," he says, "I can see how that could be a bit confusing." He says, "You see, usually there's 3 of us on the crew. But the lad who plants the trees, he called in sick," he says. "So we decided to carry on without him."
Take it, Joe. You can use it. You can use it in your act. Oh, that's pretty funny. That's pretty funny.
The lad.
Wow.
The lad.
You did it. A clean joke.
Yeah.
What do you mean I did a clean joke?
It's
tough to do clean.
Did you ever tell? Hey, Joe, did you ever drink Perrier?
Not very often.
You don't look like a Perrier guy to me, Joe.
Billy's Bar used to serve it on tap. Think about that. Think about
when I first opened the joint. All these college kids would come in and they say, "You have Perrier?" I say, "Oh yeah, I got it on tap. Instead of $2 for club soda, now it's $6. Put a twist of lemon in there. You got it on tap? Yeah, right to Paris. $2. Throw it up here." Oh man, the saloon.
we went to this bar in Cincinnati. It's in downtown hotel called the Cincinnati, and they had this bar in there. And I'm working with Terry Tata and Dutch Rennert, Steve Ripley, and Terry Tata was a big wine connoisseur. And we walked in the place, and there's a bottle of Louis the, what's it called, the 13th or
14th?
Baccarat Crystal, what's it called?
Louis Couture's?
No, it's a
Louis the 14th, I think.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So Terry looks at the bartender and says, how much is your Louis? And he, of course, he doesn't know what it is. So he said, it's $8, you know. So Terry says, we'll have 4. And it's, at the time, it was about $70 a shot.
Whoa.
Wow.
And of course, if you drink the bottle, you get the crystal, right? So we drank the whole bottle. Didn't think anything. I would take the Baccarat Crystal home and come back the next night, and Terry looks at the new bartender and says, how much is your Louis? He said, were you guys in here last night?
Pretty funny.
And of course, Terry says, no, that wasn't us.
That's a good note to close on. Joe, it's always been a pleasure.
Great talking to you, Joe. Always a pleasure.
You got to get
And
us.
I love the logo.
You got to
I
get
really
us
do.
a couple of those golf shirts.
I love
Okay.
the logo. I love it.
A medium and a portly.
I want, not too tight on the breast, Joe. I want to show off the breast, but not too tight. You know?
And what size do you wear, Derek? I know you're bigger on the upper body and narrow in the hips, but
Wow.
Narrow in the hips.
Big John. You remember that song, Big John?
Big John.
Yeah.
Jimmy Dean song.
Yeah.
A pork
You know
sausage
what?
fame.
Jimmy Dean was at the restaurant show in Chicago, and the act was the Oak Ridge Boys. And they actually pulled Jimmy Dean out of the audience to sing Big Bad John during their show. And when they got to the part about Big Bad John, they would all turn to Richard Sturban, who had the deep baritone voice, and he would go, Big Bad John.
Nice.
And they did it for the whole show, and that place went crazy. It was...
That was a good audience to be in.
Well, yeah, they're seeing something that nobody else saw. And
Yep.
that's, again, talk about...
So our Big Bad John, narrow in the waist and
Size medium, my friend.
size
Medium.
Whoa,
Huh?
he's-
Medium.
size snug.
You just wasted on a young, Frank.
Yep.
It's wasted
Yep.
on a young.
Well, I'm not going to waste any more of our time. See you next week, Joe.
Joe, thanks for coming
Thank you,
on, pal. Always good seeing
Take
you.
care.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
That's
Ah,
funny.
Joe's always great.
He's got a million stories.
He's got a million stories.
stories.
He's almost got as many as you.
God help me. I mean, he hangs out with a much better crowd of drunk than I hung around with.
He does for sure. He does for
Much
sure.
better crowd of drunks.
Well, that'll bring us to the end of another show.
Well, indeed.
We're just ripping these things out.
I think the public has noticed that we're just ripping them out.
No, we take special care in making sure taking care of our audience.
That's right.
We don't,
Special care
we
indeed.
don't take care of them, indeed. The only people we don't take care of are you and me, because for yet another show, we haven't promoted.
books.
If these lips could talk,
Lamar's
Combustible,
Gamble.
Lamar's Gamble, and Confessions of a Bronx Bookie. So pick it up, easy reading, and
Boy, is it easy reading. I mean, you could just the pages turn themselves.
the pages turn themselves. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody is right. Thanks for looking in. Derek, good night, Derek.
Thank you, Derek.
Good night, guys.
Next week's guest, internationally renowned graffiti artist Alex Man One Poli.
We'll see you next week.